Julie Hamill, attorney and president of the California Justice Center, joins us now. Julie, appreciate you making the time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, first off, before we get into the exchange you had on CNN, which we did, I don't know if you know or if you were able to listen in before, but we did play a good more than half of it, I'd say, on the air. I watched it and it was astonishing, but also I guess I expect it. So we'll get to that in a second. But can you just, from the legal perspective, tell everybody, we know this story about A.B. Hernandez, biological male competing against women. We know this stuff. What is legally at issue here? How does Title IX come into play? What is Gavin Newsom of California doing? What's happening on the legal front?
Well, long story short, Title IX has been a federal statute since 1972, and it's very simple. It is sex-based protections for you cannot discriminate against girls and women in educational programs, including sports. And so there is supposed to be equal opportunity for women and girls in educational programs, including sports. California, back in 2013, passed this law, AB 1266, which is now Education Code Section 221.5F, that says schools must allow students to use the facilities and play on the sports team that aligns with their gender identity instead of sex. So that essentially turns Title IX on its head, and we've had that in place for over a decade in California now. It mirrors almost identically Biden's Title IX rule that he put in place in 2024 that was enjoined by a number of federal district courts. So those courts said in their decisions, you cannot create a regulation or a rule that completely flies in the face of what the statute says. This completely subverts Title IX. It does the opposite of what Title IX was supposed to do by allowing males into the female spaces, into female sports, into female academic programs. It's total nonsense. Any thinking, sane human being can recognize it immediately, which is why I'm frankly shocked that this interview is getting so much attention, because it's just common sense. I was only saying things that most of America is thinking, and for some reason, that is.
Well, yeah, it went super viral, I think, for the reason that, and I'm glad that it did, Julie, over the weekend, because you are just saying in a very calm tone, and everyone heard it, we played it, here's the reality. And the CNN anchor has this almost like otherworldly, detached, but what about people who are assigned female at birth? Who uses this kind of language? Like, we just had Mother's Day recently. This is like the birthing people's day phenomenon that we've heard. Like, no normal person thinks that this should be normal. And let me ask you this: taking California's policy to its logical conclusion, let's say I was an employee in the state of California, and I wanted to claim discrimination as a woman because I say that I identify as a woman. On what grounds could California tell me that I couldn't sue for sex-based discrimination against me as a woman? Like, how is it legally codified what you identify as?
It is actually legally codified. It's freaking nonsense. So in addition to AB 1266, we also have the UNRRA Civil Rights Act, which defines discrimination based on gender identity as a violation of California civil rights law. So it's not just in schools, it's not just adults, or it's not just children, it's also adults. And California has literally legislated gender ideology into statute, which is so absolutely nuts. I don't think people really understand the consequences of what has been done here.
Wait, well, then to take me through this, because that is so nuts. I didn't even know that they had done that. How do you qualify as identifying as a different gender? What has to be done? Because it can't be sex change operation, because that's actually only a pretty small percentage of these individuals.
It's a feeling. Do you feel like a woman today? You're a woman. That's
well. So then I'm right. So then I could say I feel like a woman. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. And I think I'm being discriminated against in my California job as a woman, and I'm suing. and they would have to try to prove that I'm not actually a woman.
Yes. Yes.
That's
it's
crazy.
Absolute bonkers nonsense.
I said, what is now the next step on this, right? Because I think the sit down that you had, or the conversation you had on CNN was very illuminating. I mean, also just things like we need more study to see if biological males have an advantage in sports. This is like members of the Communist Party, or maybe even just like everyday people within the Soviet Union saying, yes, we're all starving, but the grain harvest this year was the best grain harvest in history. Like this is that level of crazy. Cause we all know that obviously the basis of men and women having segregated sports is that it wouldn't be fair if they didn't, right? That's otherwise we would just have, men and women, right, can apply to work in an investment bank. We don't have the men position, the women position. It's different in sports because of the physical differences. So are you going to bring suit? Is this going to get up to appeals? Is this going to go to SCOTUS? Like what happens now?
So there are lawsuits pending right now. The Advocates for Faith and Freedom group out of San Diego filed a lawsuit that is pending in the Central District right now. Our U.S. Attorney, Bill Asaley, has filed a statement of interest, and so the government is getting involved in that one. That is challenging AB 1266. I hope it goes to SCOTUS. In the meantime, though, the Trump administration is very much motivated and acting very quickly here, and they are coming in with the full weight of the Department of Justice. And I believe that we will see results soon, hopefully.
Well, what do you think about the pulling? Because this came up in your conversation on CNN. What do you think about the pulling of federal funds if California does not comply with Title IX, rooted in an understanding of gender as a thing that is real, or rather men and women are things that are different and distinguishable under law?
Well, this is so crazy to me that the anchor with a straight face said to me that there are different interpretations of Title IX, that there are people who believe that gender identity is the thing that should be protected and not sex. So for that reason, we need to legislate this at the congressional level. We need a federal statute to clarify that Title IX is sex-based, which does not include gender identity. It is your biological sex. The fact that we have to do that is absolutely, it's terrifying to me. We've reached Orwellian levels of insanity in this country. But in order to protect future generations, we have to have this spelled out in statute, because as soon as we don't have a Republican administration, we're going to have this crazy leftist interpretation of Title IX again, and they're going to allow males to compete against girls, share facilities with girls, and there's nothing we can really do about it. So
my problem with this is I still come back to, if they say that, and as you pointed out, that in California there's a gender identity protection law, how can you legally if somebody said, Buck, how can you lawfully or legally identify a man or a woman? I'm like, well, we know what a man is, we know what a woman is, right? I mean, it's like you sit there, you go, that's a man, that's a woman. How could you identify, or rather, how could you codify gender identity without it excluding people who claim to be covered under gender identity, or rather, without it being so vague that it could be anything?
Well, the people at DFI, the Defense of Freedom Institute, have actually proposed model legislation for this. It's like the Protect Title IX Act. You can go to their website and it's there, and they've done that. And Bill Asaley, when he was in our state legislature, right before he got appointed to the U.S. Attorney position, also introduced a bill called AB 844, which would have done the same thing. So, but
that's defining men and women in law, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, what I'm saying is, how could you define gender identity in law? Because it isn't a thing.
It's defined in various places in California statute. It's not consistent. It's always something different. And then if you look at school district policies, these different school districts throughout California have also taken a stab at trying to define it. But it's a nebulous concept that is ever changing. It's not immutable. It's not going to be protected by the Supreme Court in equal protection cases because it's not an immutable characteristic like sex. You cannot change your sex.
Yes. So do you think this is, to me, it feels like this just has to go to the Supreme Court and there has to be some, clarifying, it's amazing, clarifying ruling from the Supreme Court that men and women are different and we can know the difference.
Why do we have to do this? Why can we not have people come to their senses and start speaking rationally and having...
Well, it feels like Democrats, because you're asking a very important question, but it feels like Democrats, to what you said before, they're just trying to ride this thing out until they're in power again. And then it's going to be the lunacy of, this is the, men in women's locker rooms, men against women on the sports field, men in women's prisons.
Well, and the really Orwellian part about it is that they're saying men are women. They are women. They're not.
Right, of course.
They're actually women now because they say they are. These are women, and you must accept that. And if you don't accept that, you're a bigot.
Well, have you ever seen, this is what I always tell everybody is the true ultimate ends of this. There have been a few people who have tried this. You see like blogs or, stuff on like HuffPo or The Nation or some of those, communist loony bins online where they try to make the case that if you're a straight man who is not attracted to trans women, you're bigoted. Have you ever seen that
Yeah.
bubbles up here and there? And as I point out to everybody, based on what you just said, which is that the real belief is that trans women are women, indistinguishable from women, the ultimate logic of this is there's a problem with guys who aren't attracted to trans women. Yeah.
It's okay. One of the most disturbing elements here is what they're doing to children. I'm laughing right now, but it's really dark. It's actually incredibly dark. And I'm on a school board out here in Palos Verdes. And we had this book that we have fifth grade teachers, like these are 10-year-old kids. They're being read a book called Too Bright to See, which it literally says in the book, a trans woman is a woman, full stop, and anything else is bigotry. And that is what they're teaching little kids. It's all.
Yeah, they are teaching kids the sky is green. They are teaching kids can see. They look at the sky, it's blue, and there are books that say the sky is green, and we're supposed to accept that.
Yes. This is 1984 come to life.
It is great. Well, Julie, appreciate the work you're doing on this. What's your organization? So if anyone wants to go, help, donate, any of that stuff.
So I am the president of the California Justice Center. We are supported by the California Policy Center, which is a nonprofit organization. If you want to donate and support my work, that is where to go. You can find my handle on Twitter at Hamill, HAMILL_law.
Well, great work. Keeping your cool and keeping it calm and collected while one of the commissars was trying to go through the talking points on CNN. Appreciate you making the time for us.
Thank you so much.